Welcome back to Manhwa Heartbeats. We'll be recapping a manhwa called Secret Marriage. Don't forget to subscribe, it helps us a lot. Enjoy. Hwieon's father tells her he's arranged a marriage for her, with none other than Prince Cheongun. She's shocked and tries to speak up, but he cuts her off, reminding her that he raised her and that she should be grateful. He accuses her of being ungrateful, calling her weak like her mother. She doesn't understand why she must marry someone she barely knows, especially a prince with so many rumors swirling around him. Rumors that is a flirt, who doesn't care whether his lovers are men or women. Is this really the man she's supposed to marry? As her father's words sink in, a woman advises Hwiyeon to hide her face from the prince until after they are married. Hwiyeon feels a deep sadness, knowing this is just another choice taken from her, another reminder of a life where she has no say. They arrive, and Hwiyeon finally meets Prince Cheongun. To her surprise, he isn't at all like the rumors. He's graceful, gentle, and surprisingly kind. She can't believe someone like him is her fiancé. After they marry, she notices the people around her, especially her family, begin treating her differently now that she's wed to a prince. But even though she's with him, there are still many things Hwiyeon can't control. Her world has changed, yet she still feels trapped. Hwiyeon has always heard that no matter how wild someone is, they wouldn't dare treat the prince poorly. He is, after all, the one who saved her from her family. She feels grateful and starts to think of him whenever she sees beautiful things. Magnolias bloom in the garden, their pale petals shining in the moonlight, and they remind her of him. She even sends him a branch of magnolia with her best wishes, hoping that they'll reunite in the spring. The prince seems so romantic, and for a moment, she thinks the rumors about him must be wrong. But her happiness doesn't last long. One night, soldiers attack her home, declaring the Bakrian family as traitors. Hwiyeon runs for her life, fleeing until she's gasping for air. Ironically, in this desperate situation, she finally makes a choice for herself. She decides to escape that night, leaving behind her identity and everything she once knew. She has to disguise herself, so she dresses as a man and takes on a new life as a servant in a fabric shop, calling herself Dan. Living as a man may be strange, but it's safer. One day, a woman in the shop teases Dan, asking if he's interested in women now that he's grown up. Dan just laughs it off, saying he prefers working with fabrics. The woman thinks to herself that it's obvious he's not interested in women. Hwiyeon, hidden beneath her disguise, feels relieved, knowing she's safer this way. Meanwhile, in the fabric shop, customers come and go. A lady notices a man passing by and smirks, saying he must be going to the Manhwa brothel at this hour. She laughs, saying his family must have strange values. When her friend asks who she's talking about, she explains, gossiping about a handsome man who's been visiting the brothel recently. No one knows his real identity, but rumors say he might be an official or from a wealthy family. They both laugh as the lady remembers she's here to buy fabric and finally asks what's in stock today. The shop owner tells Hwiyeon to deliver some fabric to the Motorola brothel, insisting she goes right away since they need the items today. Hwiyeon heads over, and when she arrives, someone directs her to the tailoring room on the 4th floor. She thinks to herself that disguising herself as a man was the right choice. In this world, it's her only way to stay safe. She wonders if this life is just a dream. If she were to wake up, she'd still be with her family, the Bakrian, and maybe even with the prince. Suddenly, she hears someone behind her ask if they've met before, and when she turns, she realizes it's Prince Cheongun, her former fiancé. Startled, she drops the fabric, and it falls right on his head. She panics, asking herself how this happened, while he smirks and remarks on a lowly servant daring to touch him. Her heart sinks as she realizes she's in trouble, thinking how unlucky she is to run into him here. She stammers that she deserves punishment, but pleads for mercy. He tells her to raise her head, asking if she's sure they haven't met before. She wonders if he recognizes her, but forces a laugh, saying he must be from the royal family. He notes she smells nice for a man, which makes her uneasy. She asks him to stop and wonders why he's acting this way, while he questions if she came here looking for companionship. She quickly says she's just a servant doing errands, uninterested in any romantic entanglement. He chuckles, saying it's unfortunate, as he's quite interested. Since she dared to touch him, he insists she should pay the price. Hwiyeon thinks it wasn't even her hand, just the fabric, and wonders why she would be punished for that. Just then, a woman opens the door and calls for her, giving her a brief moment of relief. Yuhai, the most famous courtesan of the Manhwa brothel, welcomes Prince Cheongun, mentioning his late, and she was worried. She turns to Hwiyeon, asking if she brought the fabrics, and directing her to the tailoring room, showing her where to leave everything. Hwiyeon thinks to herself that she escaped trouble for now, but then the prince tells her that he'll find her soon, leaving her feeling tense and thinking she needs to escape. In the land of Geumyul, the prince is expected to take over the throne, but his wild behavior has delayed his coronation. The people now look to his younger brother, Prince Honghae, as the likely future king. Despite knowing this, Hwiyeon's heart still clings to Prince Cheongun, the man she dreams of and once thought would be her future. She quietly apologizes to herself, accepting they can't be together. A guard tells her that if she wants to leave, she'll need to be searched, which makes her worry. She decides to wait until morning, thinking security might be more relaxed then. She slips into a nearby building, but to her shock, Prince Cheongun is there waiting for her. He looks at her, saying he knew she'd show up eventually, even though he thought she might try to escape. She asks him why he's here, and he gestures for her to sit, then changes his mind, telling her to stand instead. She sits nervously. He asks if she's thought of a way to repay him, and she asks why he's treating her this way, pointing out that even merchants have lines they won't cross. He asks if someone else has captured her heart. Confused, she admits she once had an engagement, but it's in the past now, too far out of reach. She thinks to herself that she shouldn't even entertain feelings, it's impossible and makes no sense. He asks if she loves a traitor, which startles her. She denies it, saying she'd never do such a thing, but he just nods and offers her some wine. Surprised, she asks why, and he replies casually, as if it's a reward. She wonders what he'd say if she refused but ends up accepting, saying she's not picky. He then mentions he planned to get close to her but finds himself stuck with a drink instead, making her uncomfortable with his blunt words. He tells her to pour for him, and she does, but he immediately dumps it out, saying there's dust in it. She nods awkwardly and pours again, thinking how finicky he is. She notices how graceful he still looks while drinking, but when he catches her staring, he asks why she hasn't lifted her own cup. She quickly agrees to drink, but tells herself not to be swayed. He suddenly pauses, asking if she's sure she hasn't poisoned his drink, which she denies, reminding him she brought the drink herself. He insists she drink it first. She sighs, takes a sip, and tells him there's no poison, wondering why he'd think she'd harm him. Then, unexpectedly, he leans in and kisses her. She's stunned by the warmth of the kiss, but quickly tells him to stop. He asks why, adding, "Is it because you don't have a man's body?" She's taken aback, realizing he knows her secret, that she's disguised as a man. Some people call him reckless, some call him other things, but he can see right away that she's uncomfortable, almost disgusted, by the way she looks at him. He smirks and asks why a woman would be wandering around dressed like a man. Did her father commit a crime? Or is she hiding from something she did herself? She tries to keep her expression steady, thinking she has to keep her secret no matter what. But he presses, saying she should just tell him if he's guessed right. She wonders just how much he actually knows. Did he come close to her as soon as he figured it out? Is she really going to die here? by the hands of the man she was once promised to. He tells her he understands how hard it must be, saying the world is dangerous for a woman on her own. She thinks to herself that he doesn't actually know anything, not the truth, yet is still so gentle with her. Morning comes, and she realizes she couldn't sleep at all after last night. She remembers how he said he wouldn't push her into anything she didn't want, but that she should be ready for next time. Then he left, saying it so calmly. She checks around and sees the guards are still on alert today. This place isn't safe anymore. At least it seems like he doesn't know her true identity, but still, she has no idea what might happen. Whether he'll save her or end her, she doesn't know. She remembers his kiss and can't stop thinking about it, feeling frustrated that she can't keep her thoughts in check. It's just as people say, there's a reason he's called debauched. How many others has he been with? While she's lost in thought, a man calls out to her, asking where she's going so early. She greets him, saying she's just taking a walk. He tells her he just made some rice cakes and insists she tries some. She thanks him, and he offers her more to take back to the shop owner. She accepts, thanking him again, but as she's about to leave, she feels eyes on her. The man calls to her again, but she notices a stranger watching her closely. She thanks him for the offer, but says she has something urgent to do. He nods, saying she should come back another time. She thinks she's never seen that person around this market before, but when she turns, she sees him again, staring at her. Realizing she's being followed, she quickly starts to run. He tells her to stop running, saying there's no need to hide. She wonders if he would actually stop if someone told him to, and just then, a lady nearby asks if she'd like some manchu. She quickly grabs one, asking to borrow it just for a moment, even though the lady says they're not fully cooked yet. The man chasing her threatens to use force if she doesn't stop, so she tosses the manchu at him, hitting him, and tells him he can pay for it. She keeps running, thinking to herself that she won't make it easy for him to catch her. It feels like her whole life has been a constant chase, and just as she turns a corner, she runs straight into Prince Cheongun. He looks down at her, amused, and asks why she's in such a hurry. He calls out to the man who was chasing her, calling him Uni, and tells him he's looking quite charming in all the commotion. She wonders if the two of them actually know each other. The prince then turns to her, saying he's not surprised by her reaction, and admits he let Uni follow her just to make sure she didn't run off again. She insists she's never run away before, but he just shrugs, saying they should go. She asks where, and he replies that he needs to buy some fabrics. At the fabric shop, the shop owner proudly shows them a rare silk that's come directly from Huon, boasting about the color and how hard it is to find. The prince examines it, then nods, saying he'll buy all of it. The shop owner praises his taste, and the female lead agrees, though she's uncertain why she's involved in this. The prince points at her, telling her to come over and introduce each fabric to him in detail. She asks what she's done now, but he insists he needs a thorough description of everything he's just bought. She asks if she can just talk from where she's standing, but the shop owner jumps in, telling her to hurry up and do what she's told or she'll make him lose a good customer. She sighs and agrees, picking up a fabric and explaining it's their best quality product, imported from Huon. She thinks to herself how much she's done for this shop, yet here she is, just being used. She continues, saying the embroidery is beautiful, and the bright color suits the prince well. Suddenly, he pulls her close, saying he couldn't hear her well and tells her to sit closer. Then he pulls her onto his lap. Shocked, she asks what he's doing, while some other men lead the shop owner away. She demands he let her go, asking why he's doing such humiliating things. He tells her to quiet down and slips a piece of fruit into her mouth. She realizes it's sweet and fresh, and he asks if she likes it, reminding her not to worry, because he won't do anything she dislikes. She thinks to herself that, despite his words, he's still holding her close. Finally, she says she understands now and asks him to put her down. He looks at her and remarks on how thin she is, saying she should eat more, then keeps feeding her more fruit. He laughs, saying she's eating like a little bird, and she suddenly remembers the kiss from before, wondering why it keeps coming to mind. He notices and asks if she's thinking about last night. She denies it, saying she has no idea what he means. He raises an eyebrow, saying if she doesn't remember, he'll help her recall. He kisses her again, asking if she still doesn't remember, but she doesn't respond. He asks if he needs to be harsh and force her to remember by doing more, like putting something in her. She quickly says she remembers, and he responds, saying she should have said that earlier. He tells her that what he did wasn't a big deal, just a kiss, and she asks how that's special. She tells him she's done enough kissing, so it's not a big deal. He asks if that's the case, if she's already kissed a lot, then it shouldn't be hard for her now. He says he's curious to see what she's really capable of. She thinks to herself that she's turning into a joke in his eyes, but she still acts foolishly, and then he kisses her again. She wonders if he even knows who she really is. Maybe he forgot that his betrothed is a traitor. She wishes she could tell him just once that she's completely in love with him. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. She snaps back to reality, pushes him away, and asks him to move out of the way. It feels like cold water was thrown on her, but he pulls her back closer. He asks why that person is looking for her, and if it's Yuhai, the courtesan from the brothel Manhwa. From what he's seen, they seem close, and he wonders what kind of relationship they have. Hwiyeon thinks to herself that Prince Cheongun and Yuhai must be involved in some kind of relationship. Maybe they've even spent the night together. She tells him that they're just friends, so he should please move aside. She wonders why she's in such a bad mood, when she already knew what was going on. She opens the door for Yuhai and asks why she's there. Yuhai is about to answer, but then she notices the prince and asks what he's doing there. The prince casually says he was bored, so he came to visit. He adds that they've become friends in the past few days and tells them both goodbye. Yuhai then asks Hwiyeon how she knows the prince. Hwiyeon replies that it's hard to explain, but that it's just the way things are. Yuhai says she understands, but warns her to be careful. She already knows about the prince and says it's nothing, just a reminder to be cautious. She then says she came to tell Hwiyeon something. Hwiyeon asks what it is. Yuhai hesitates for a moment before saying that the truth is, she likes her. She asks if Hwiyeon will marry her, explaining that she's received a proposition. If it works out, she won't have to stay at the brothel anymore, and they can leave together. Hwiyeon tries to explain, but Yuhai cuts her off, asking if it's because she's not a man. Hwiyeon asks how she knows that Yuhai's been pretending, and Yuhai responds that she's met many men and knows the signs. She tells Hwiyeon that she doesn't care if she's a man or a woman, she likes her because her heart is warm and kind. She says she won't ask questions, and they can just be happy friends. Yuhai asks what Hwiyeon thinks about that. Hwiyeon apologizes and tells Yuhai that she can't return her feelings. Yuhai asks why, wondering if it's because she's a woman or because she's a courtesan. Hwiyeon gently replies that it's not about that at all. For her, there's someone she can never forget, someone she's felt drawn to from the moment they met. She apologizes again for not being able to feel the same way. Yuhai walks in and meets Prince Cheongun. He asks if she's thought about his offer. He mentions that his herd Wang Igu has been visiting her recently and tells her that she needs to report everything about him to them. While nothing has been confirmed yet, there are rumors that the king has fallen ill. The problem is that the crown prince hasn't been announced yet. People are saying that Prince Cheongun isn't interested in the throne and only cares about wine and women. They believe that the next great king will be Honghae, the second prince, but Cheongun's attention seems to be on Wang Igu instead. Yuhai points out that Wang Igu, a supervisory official, is clearly on Cheongun's side. Yuhai then says that being a spy isn't difficult, because powerful men often think of women as harmless and not paying attention. But she asks him what his purpose is. Cheongun thinks to himself that his real purpose is to watch those who destroyed many families fall. But then he says aloud that there's only one thing he wants: to get rid of those who attack him and his property. His plan is to capture and eliminate a group he calls the Flaming Wolves. Since he got engaged to Hwiyeon, Cheongun has heard rumors that the second prince, Honghae, and the supervisory officer have been meeting secretly. They probably think that with the support of the Betrothed family, Cheongun will become more powerful, so they see him as a threat. In reality, he's the one who caused trouble for the Betrothed family. He tells Yuhai that in order to move forward with his plan, he'll need her help, and asks if she's willing to do it. She agrees to take his offer. He assures her that the reward will be worth it, and that the amount of money won't disappoint her. He tells her that all she has to do is report everything about Wang Igu. Yuhai cuts him off, saying she has one condition. She asks if he'll let her assassinate the supervisory officer, which surprises Cheongun. He asks why she would want to do that, and she explains that it's a personal desire of hers. He tells her that he doesn't care who kills Wang Igu, as long as he's gone, so he agrees to her condition. Yuhai thanks him for his generosity. Cheongun warns her to be careful around the royal family, because if she makes a mistake, she won't be the only one in danger. He thinks to himself that the same applies to him too. Prince Cheongun calls Uni, and Uni answers. The prince asks him if, back then, they searched the mountainous areas because they couldn't find Hwiyeon anywhere else. Uni confirms that they did. The prince tells him that he's always been this close, and it turns out they've been searching in the wrong place. Uni apologizes, saying he should have found her sooner. The prince thinks to himself about what he can do to make Hwiyeon feel assured, and then he remembers the fire. One of the soldiers tells the others they shouldn't let anyone escape. Another soldier hears a sound and says someone is in that direction. Hwiyeon starts running, and the soldier orders them to follow her because she won't escape. But then, the prince appears and kills one of the soldiers. The other soldiers are shocked. The prince tells Uni to follow Hwiyeon, and Uni replies, saying he'll chase after her. One of the soldiers asks the prince what he's doing, telling him to move aside. He accuses the prince of committing treason for protecting a traitor, and asks if he plans to betray the country. The prince responds that betrayal is only possible if one of them survives. Another soldier tells the others not to be afraid. He says it's just one opponent, and the prince got lucky, but he can't take on all of them. The prince then kills all of the soldiers. In the present, the prince says it's his fault that the Betrothed family was destroyed. He admits that he approached Hwiyeon because of his ambition. She became his betrothed, and in the end, he won't let her go again. She's his woman, his betrothed. He walks toward her. Hwiyeon tells him that their business is closed. The prince asks if that means she won't be selling anything. She tells him that it's impossible if he wants something, but closed doors will still eventually open. He asks what he should do since he's not here to buy, but to sell. She agrees, saying okay. He tells her that he won't try to control her, that he will give himself to her instead. He won't claim ownership of her, but tonight, he will let her have him. She wonders if she should escape to avoid spending the night with him, or if she should just run away to avoid him altogether. But it feels wrong to say that because the one she's really been missing is her betrothed, Cheongun. He tells her that if she wants him to, she should hold on to him. He thinks to himself that if Hwiyeon is his for the rest of his life, that memory will stay with him forever. He leads her to a room and kisses her, and they get intimate. The next morning, she wakes up and feels like her body is heavy. She asks him why it feels this way. He wakes up and asks if she slept well. She remembers what happened the night before and feels a bit overwhelmed. She asks him where they are, and he replies, "It's Hwiyeon Pavilion." She asks, "Where's that?" and he says it's his private estate by Gyeongpung Lake. He starts touching her, and she tells him that it's daytime. He asks if she's embarrassed to do anything during the day. He adds that last night he was full, but now he's hungry again and wonders why. She stands up, saying she needs to get back. He asks where she's going, and she tells him to the fabric store. She explains that the owner must have been waiting for her, because she's so late, without any notice. He reassures her, saying he already informed the owner that he was borrowing her. He tries to touch her again, but she says no. He asks what's wrong now, and she tells him she's exhausted, that she doesn't have any strength left. She warns him that if he keeps going, she might pass out. He promises he won't do that again, but she says he's lying. Before long, they're intimate once more. Later that day, she feels like she might die. She doesn't even know what day it is. They were together all night and all day, being intimate non-stop. He walks up to her and says she's awake, she should get up and eat something. He hands her the chopsticks, but she can't hold them and they fall. She tells him that she has no strength in her hands. He asks if that's true. He says there's no other choice. He'll have to feed her himself since she used up so much energy. He tells her to open her mouth. She thinks to herself, wondering who he thinks caused all this. He asks if the food tastes good, and she says yes. He says she'll need to eat more meat. She tells him she doesn't like meat, and he replies, "No wonder you're so thin." She asks if she really is thin, and he says she looks like she'll break into pieces with a single touch. She asks how strong he is exactly. He says now that she has something in her stomach, she should sleep some more. She tells him she's been away from the store for too long, and the regulars must be wondering where she is. He says it's fine, he'll take care of it. She thinks to herself that she should be there. Meanwhile, Uni is at the fabric store. She tells him it's best if she rests her eyes for a little while, and he agrees. He kisses her forehead gently. At the Imperial Palace, in Yangchun Palace, Prince Cheongun visits his father. The Empress tells him that his father's illness not improving is really concerning her. She says the Emperor needs to recover quickly. Prince Cheongun says that now he's visited his father, he'll take his leave. The Empress agrees and says, "All right." As he leaves, he wonders to himself if she's really concerned. Her acting is so good, he thinks. The Empress is the one who wants his father dead more than anyone else. If the Emperor wakes up, the Empress will be able to make him the crown prince instead of her biological son, the second prince, Honghae. At that point, someone will probably try to take his life. Until then, he thinks, he'll have to stay careful. Prince Honghae sees someone and asks who it is. When he realizes it's his brother, Prince Cheongun, one of Honghae's guards, says he should step down from the palanquin and bow properly to the prince. The first prince tells them it's fine, he's just a child after all. Prince Honghae thinks to himself that his brother has always been like this, but how dare that nameless guard criticize him, the future emperor. Only fools would trust someone like Cheongun. He didn't even know that his brother had such loyal followers. Prince Honghae asks his older brother what he came for. Cheongun says he came to visit their father, and there has been no progress in his health, which worries him a lot. Honghae replies that he understands. Then he adds that Cheongun has been disappearing from the palace a lot recently. He wonders if their father will not make Cheongun the crown prince because of that. Prince Cheongun responds that compared to that, Honghae is truly the one who knows nothing. Honghae asks what he means by that. Cheongun says that rumors spread in the palace like wildfire. Honghae agrees that he knows. Cheongun says that's good, because he's been hearing some rumors himself. He says he's heard that Honghae's lower half doesn't work very well. After all these years of marriage, why hasn't he had an heir? Cheongun asks if his brother needs advice. From what he said, Cheongun doesn't think his older brother has any problems when it comes to pleasure. They can chat anytime. Then, Cheongun says he's going now. Prince Honghae thinks to himself that once he becomes emperor, he will definitely cut off his brother's tongue. Hwiyeon tells a customer about a fabric that is as clear as grass and as soft as pond water. She says the customer will be pleased with it. The lady asks if everything is okay, wondering why Hwiyeon isn't selling today. Hwiyeon quickly says it's nothing and that she will show the lady other fabrics. She asks her to wait for a moment. As she walks inside, Hwiyeon thinks to herself that it's been half a month since that day, and Prince Cheongun has disappeared as if he never existed. She wonders if it was all just a dream. She tells herself that just one time is enough, and that she shouldn't be greedy. When she comes back out, she asks the lady why she bought so much today. The lady says her face looks so gloomy, so she just wanted her to smile a little more. Hwiyeon thanks the lady and is about to say something else when the lady speaks again. She says she was actually planning to stop coming for a while. Even when others told her not to buy any more, she still kept coming back. Hwiyeon smiles and says she understands, thanking the lady again. Later, the shop owner asks if the lady is gone. Hwiyeon says yes, and he tells her she should go to Manhwa brothel now. She looks at him, surprised, and asks what he means. He questions her attitude, saying that every man wants to go to a place like that but can't, and wonders why she's always acting like this. He says how great it would be if he could just walk past and hear a song from there. Hwiyeon tells him to go there himself. The shop owner asks if she wants to make him, an old man, go to such a place. He complains that she always begs him to let her work, but he'd rather die than deal with this at his age. Hwiyeon sighs and says she understands. The shop owner tells her she should have acted earlier, and she agrees. He tells her to take care. Wang Igu notices that Hwiyeon's cup is empty and tells her to have a sip of what she poured for him. He asks why her face looks so unpleasant, saying she doesn't seem comfortable pouring drinks for them. She answers that she's not sure why, but she hopes he leaves with a smile. He agrees and praises her spirit. One of the other men asks him what he's thinking, saying all they need to do now is receive the favor from that person until the right moment comes. Wang Igu replies that they are right, and the end is near. All they have to do now is wait. He adds that if lightning strikes, it's safer to hide under a roof. Wang Igu then calls Yuhai over and asks her if she's sure she won't become his concubine. He tells her that way, she won't have to keep smiling awkwardly for him anymore. He promises to make an exception for her. Yuhai thanks him for his kind words, but she says she really likes this place. If he truly wants her, he must first win her heart. Wang Igu laughs, amazed by her response, and one of the women nearby comments that he must have decided to make his move now. He then tells Yuhai that she dares to speak those words in front of him, and that she isn't cute at all. He says he will definitely make her his woman. Yuhai replies that she'll return after her short leave and leaves. As she walks away, she thinks about his words. She reflects on how he can't even recognize his own blood. Her mother used to sleep around and had a child with Wang Igu. For both her and her mother to have been involved with that man, it feels wrong. She remembers Wang Igu asking her mother how she knew the child was his, only for her to be abandoned by him. Yuhai can't believe she has his blood in her. She feels like biting her tongue and dying, but then she thinks about someone else. Uni notices that Yuhai is upset and asks if she's okay. She tells him she's fine, but asks what's going on. Uni tells her that the person she's been waiting for is ready to see her, and she heads to meet Prince Cheongun. When she arrives, he tells her that both of them are meeting as customer and prostitute. He asks her to come closer so they can talk. Just as she walks in, Hwiyeon notices them together. Yoo-hae thinks to herself that she knew it all along. She knew he was that type of person, a Casanova who got kicked off the throne after sleeping with countless women. But why does her heart hurt so much now? A man walks up to her and asks what she's doing there. When he notices her staring at Prince Cheongun and Yoo-hae, he asks if she's getting jealous. He teases her, saying it's obvious she likes Yoo-hae. She calls him a crazy kid, but he insists that she's falling into Yoo-hae's web of affection. He says it's fair, every man would be touched by it, and soon she'll get over the pain of love. He leaves, and Yoo-hae is left thinking about what he said. She tells herself that she already knew all this, so she should calm down. Yooni then shows up and asks what she's doing there. She's startled and asks where he came from so suddenly. He tells her he was just behind a corner, but then asks what in the world she's doing at that place. Meanwhile, Prince Cheongun notices them and asks what they are doing there. He's confused and wonders why her gaze towards him is so full of anger. He can see she looks heartbroken and tells her to speak up. Yoo-hae replies that if she embraces him, she might forget everything. She then wonders to herself when was the last time she decided to give up on her ambitions. Her mouth just said those words without thinking. She wonders if she should do the same to the Duke. She thinks he was supposed to be hers, the only one she could have for herself. He responds by saying that if she embraces him, he will hold her in his arms every time. He opens her chest and says they are already gone. She asks what he means, and he explains it's all the marks he left on her. She notices that he tied her up and asks why he did that. He tells her that this room is where he usually invites women to play. It's specially decorated for his personal enjoyment with them. Yoo-hae feels a pang in her chest. She thinks to herself that even if she had the fortune to marry him, she wouldn't be a good wife. She remembers hearing that a wife is supposed to ignore her husband's concubines. Her father's teachings echo in her mind, reminding her that he wasn't a faithful person. She tells herself she shouldn't be upset about missing out on all of this. He's had intimate moments with so many people in this place. Just how many women has he been with? She tells him to stop, saying it seems like he's done this kind of thing many times before. She doesn't need him to do this to her, and she just wants him to let her go. She thinks to herself that she doesn't want to be with someone like him. He responds by saying he's never used this room before, not even once. He decorated it with care, hoping that rumors would spread about him. Perhaps she's heard them too, the rumors about his debauchery. But, even though the rumors are plenty, when she looks deeper, there's actually nothing to them. She asks why there's a room like this. He replies, saying that she was the one who just said it. Since she's clearly been with him before, there's no need to pretend anymore. He says that since she's never done it before, he can now play with her as he pleases. He asks why today feels so heartbreaking. She tells him she doesn't feel heartbroken at all. Then he starts teasing her with a feather, telling her not to pretend. She begs him to stop, but he asks if she's sure she won't confess. She says no, she won't confess, and he says he must punish her. She finally admits that it's because she was jealous, seeing him going in and out of the brothel so often. That's what made her jealous. She thinks to herself that she's just someone he uses to indulge and entertain himself at night. So what do her feelings have to do with that? He tells her that from now on, he won't go to the brothel anymore. She says yes. He says he doesn't know if this will help calm her emotions, but he will do whatever she says. She wonders why she's reacting this way, as if he really loves her. He makes her forget herself, and that makes her weak. They get closer again. He tells her it's a happy day, and that she should be careful on her way back. As she leaves, Yooni asks if he should go with her. He replies that she should go alone, it's dangerous if she shows affection for her. He wonders how he can keep her close without putting her in danger, and then suddenly, he figures out a way. The shop owner asks Hwiyeon where she's been since yesterday. The shop has already opened by now. She apologizes. She wonders to herself if she's asking too much, and wonders if she can meet him again. She thinks that this time, she might have forced him into it. He's probably tired of her by now. Prince Cheongun says it looks like she doesn't have enough energy to sweep the yard. From now on, they'll be neighbors because he bought the whole store. He says he bought the store because he was bored. She asks if he's found anything to sell yet, and he replies that he still has to think about that. Then he asks why she's making that face. She's probably thinking badly of him again, right? He jokingly asks if she's going to hit him with a broom again, like last time, because it really hurt. She reminds him that she told him it was a mistake, but asks if he really plans to open a store here. He asks if there's a problem with that. She owns a store herself, so why not? She thinks to herself that he's acting like the place belongs to him now. He tells her to sell her fabrics well. She thinks to herself that she truly doesn't understand what he's thinking. She tells the lady that she's really lucky today, because there's a rare fabric that's only available for today. She came at the perfect time. If she's tired of plain fabrics, she should try this one. The lady says it's beautiful and asks if it's too flashy. She laughs and says, "What are you talking about? Your face just lit up like the moonlight." The lady asks if that's true, and they both laugh. She tells the lady to take care. Prince Cheongun, who's been listening, says it's natural. She asks him what he means by that, and he tells her she has a natural talent for pleasing women. She says that's what she has to do if she wants to make a living. He says, "And yet, you can't figure me out." She says she doesn't understand what he's trying to say, and he starts to explain, but she wonders to herself what his problem is now. She asks him why he doesn't seem to care about his new store at all. He says he hasn't decided what to sell yet. She thinks to herself that this is just like him. He bought a store out of boredom. She feels like he's living in a completely different world than hers. He's a noble prince, while she's just a regular person, nothing special. But she knows this could mean trouble for her in the future. He calls her over and tells her to come closer. She asks why, and he hands her something to eat. She asks why he's having her eat it, and he says it would be a shame to throw it away. She thinks to herself that he's so annoying, just by speaking, but she thanks him anyway. She thinks to herself that something feels warm. He asks if she's going to resume working after she finishes eating, and she replies that she's eating right now. He asks if the shop owner pays her well, and she tells him she earns a lot of money. He asks if anyone is bothering her, and she just tells herself to focus on eating. Then, a lady calls out to her. She quickly leaves the food on the chair and runs over to the lady. He watches her, then gets up and takes the food to give it to her. He asks if she's done cleaning up yet, and she greets him. He says he's there to buy some silk. She asks him again, just to make sure, and he confirms it. Then he asks which one is good. She shows him some fabric she looked at earlier, saying that because his lips are so red, this one will suit him perfectly. She thinks to herself that, honestly, every color would suit him just fine. She tells him that since he has a fair complexion, blue would look great on him. Just as she's about to show him, she almost falls off the ladder, but he catches her in time. He asks her what she just said, saying he didn't quite catch it. They start kissing and become intimate. He asks her if her body feels better now. She replies, asking if it's really possible to push yourself that hard. She thinks to herself that it isn't fair. If he keeps teasing her like this, who could handle it? He says that taking a bath like that must have been tough for her, and offers to help. She tells him to stop, but he asks if this is the first time someone's bathed her, wondering if it bothers her. She asks why it would. He goes on to say that people would think he was the one who bathed her and brought her to the Hwiyeon pavilion, and that he cleaned her up. They end up getting intimate again. Later, a man asks Yuhai if she's ignoring him. He mentions how much he spent just to be with her for a few nights. Yuhai replies that he can't buy this night, no matter if he offers her 100 or 1,000 gold coins. He asks what she means by that and tells her not to brag about her godfather's attention. He accuses her of having nothing to offer but her body, and he tries to hit her. But Uni steps in, grabbing the man's hand and asking him to stop. The man asks who Uni is and where he came from. Uni bends his hand, causing the man to scream and threaten to report Yuhai to her godmother. Yuhai tells him to go ahead. Uni checks on her, asking if she's okay. She says she is and thanks him, but she mentions that the guest is. Uni tells her that he's alone today. Yuhai says she has a good idea of what's going on, then asks if there's something between Uni and her. He tries to explain, but she says he doesn't need to answer. She tells him that she has something called observance, and that she wanted to check something before everything ends, whether she will be safe. There's something important about her friend, something connected to when her mother passed away. She says that, at that time, there really wasn't anywhere to go. There's nothing to regret, but then she hears someone talking nearby. She says she doesn't think the rope will work. He asks what she means. She replies that the rope is made from thin thread, it's rough and weak. He asks if she doesn't care about her duty or her safety. She tells him she will go, but she wants to say one thing. Even if she does this, neither the world nor the person who pushed her into this will feel any sorrow. She has to defeat the world and push the person who led her down this path into the abyss. She says she shouldn't throw her life away. She's more than just her friend, she's her savior. If something threatens her safety, he says something like that won't happen, because the prince respects himself. She agrees, saying she'll make a move soon. He should take care of the prince. A bird delivers a message to him. The room is quiet and still. She's not sure how much time has passed when she wakes up. He tells her she can sleep a little longer. His touch as he brushes her hair is so gentle, it almost hurts, but it touches her heart. He asks why she's crying and tells her to tell him where it hurts. If she doesn't speak now, he won't know. She realizes that to him, she's just an interesting and tempting bedmate. She remembers what he said to her and wonders if she's forgotten those sweet words. She says she's not Dan, she's, and then she thinks to herself that she's Hwiyeon. She's the one who loves him, who has yearned for him desperately. Has he really forgotten her name? He says he's there, explaining that from birth, he learned how to give up. He didn't covet what wasn't his, but sometimes even what was his, he let it slip away. He pretended to be someone he wasn't, even when it was his. He acted as if it wasn't his, but now he says he should just be himself. There's a reason to covet what isn't his. He asks if she knows why. He already knew from the start that her name wasn't Daniel. She asks how he knew. He says maybe she knows his name, but she shouldn't say it now. He tells her that next time, he'll come to find her, and she'll call his name then. She tries to speak, but he says she should forget everything. He didn't come for her, and the night they shared was just a foolish desire of his own making, an illusion. Then, he kisses her. 15 days later, the man announces that the emperor's condition is very critical. He tells the citizens not to panic, but to focus on their daily lives. Inside the country, there will be more inspections to improve security. They'll also forbid the formation of private armies, no matter the status. Hwiyeon thinks to herself that he's been gone for about 2 weeks, leaving with those words. All she has to do is forget everything. She opens the door to the shop and calls out for the prince, but when she looks inside, she sees 3 men. She asks if they've met before. One of them says that wouldn't be possible and explains that they are disciples of a young master. She asks what they are doing there. He replies, "If you look, you'll understand." He tells her that they are selling pastries. She asks why they're selling pastries, and he says they can't just leave the store empty, so they have to do something and start a business. She says the store has been empty until now, so why are they suddenly selling pastries? He says they started selling today. She nods and then asks where the prince is now. He pauses before answering, "Well." If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 2. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.